Welcome to AUC Authors Series. In this series of programs, we interview the authors in the Atlanta University Center community and introduce you to their latest published works. This program is produced by Brad Ost and Daniel Lee.
With us today is Dr. Ed Wimberly from the Interdenominational Theological Center. He is the Jarena Lee Professor of Pastoral Care.
Today we're going to be discussing Dr. Wimberly's newest book, which has just come out, No Shame in Wesley's Gospel, a 21st Century Pastoral Theology. So thank you, Dr. Wimberly, very much for being with us here today.
I'm glad that you invited me here. Is it Dr. Ost or is it...
Just Brad Ost. That's enough for me. Let me ask you, can you give us an overview of your book, just to start?
Basically, yes, No Shame in Wesley's Gospel. And I guess for the last 3 years I've been working with the United Methodist Church. It's what they call the Committee Committee on Faith and Order. Mm-hmm. And one of the issues that they're struggling with more than anything else is what do we believe as United Methodists? So I was raised in the United Methodist Church. It was actually the Methodist Episcopal Church, and then became United Methodist Church when they integrated, I guess, in the 60s. And I always understood Wesley, and my father always talked about Wesley and earn all you can, save all you can, and give all you can. And so I found some relationship between Wesley and what we call contemporarily now shame, not shame theology, but shame psychology, right. Which focuses on being loved and unlovable in that regard. And I found that Wesley's theology had a lot to say about the experience of being loved by God, but also the experience of guilt. And so I really wanted to talk about how to upgrade Wesley's theology so I can deal with the 21st century, because I think that people are not afraid of going to hell,
right,
as during Wesley's time, and they didn't need the assurance of salvation in that way, but they definitely need the assurance that they are loved and cared for by God. And so I wanted to pick up on not as juridical theology or justice theology as much as I wanted to pick up on the whole issue of therapeutic theology, which is a relationship with God through Jesus Christ.
Okay.
So that's how that developed.
There were several things when I was reading the book that popped out to me. Two, I want to remember two, and I'm hoping that I'm going to here. One was you talked about the different historical periods of shame, and the other one you talked about economics. And I want to start with the historical period. You quoted Tillich, saying that at different times there were different historical contexts of particular shame for that context.
Yes.
As we're in the 21st century, what do you see all those contexts of shame coming together, or is there a peculiar shame to the 21st century?
Right. Well, I was using Tillich, no doubt about it, encouraged to be in certain other places where he tried to go all the way back to the time of when Jesus walked the earth and talked about the whole issue of fear of death.
Right.
Okay, and that the more you get into technology and those type of things, and even after the Enlightenment and industrialization and those types of things, the fear of death is kind of further removed, right, in terms of the actual rawness of it. But Tillich, helped us to begin to talk about the issue of acceptance, the threat of non-being, and the threat of non-being was still real, and so, but it was not as raw as it was in the earlier days when the whole life, your lifestyle was just threatened all the time by death. But the issue of non-being and the issue of lack of meaning and those types of things is really what the modern issue is today. And so it changes. So shame today is the threat of non-being. And it's almost experienced as deadness and being dead and being unloved and unlovable. Okay, and so what happens today is that guilt takes a back seat. And it takes a backseat primarily because people are not, they'll do whatever they need to do or they think they need to do in order to be loved and that kind of thing. And it doesn't matter what kind of relationship exists, it will do that. And so I agree with Cornel West in terms of that nihilism is a major threat today. There's a loss of relationships, loss of love, and loss of meaning. Okay, but it's still, until it helps me to see how it's all related to the fear of death.
Right.
And non-being, yeah.
When you say that today we're willing, in a sense, to do almost anything to be loved, does that mean that this idea of shame, which is supposed to confront you with your sin and bring you back to the Lord, has that become deadened? Has shame become deadened, or is it still there?
Well, in psychology, we have redefined shame to, and the shame that comes as a result of the social dimension of it, of doing things that are not acceptable and things like that. Yes, that has receded into the background. Okay, what has come to the foreground is that I have a right to do whatever I want to do in order to be loved, and it doesn't matter what that is. Okay, and so oftentimes, and that's one of the issues in addiction. Addiction, I guess, is a way of finding substitutes, for love. And so you can do a variety of things to substitute for love, but they're never satisfactory in that regard. And so part of, definitely there's a difference now. And you have, when you're in the village, even though the village may be judgmental and things like that, it's still a village, and it may generate the whole issue of guilt within that context, but without the village, and this I call it supervision,
right?
Without supervision and things like that, then you don't experience the need for guilt as strenuous as you did if you were in the community. Right. So,
okay. Because we're here at the AUC community, we're also focusing on the African American experience. So you talk about Wesley was very much against slavery.
Yes.
And you describe slavery in economic terms, that it not only deadened the soul of the slave, but the slave owner as well, because they were seeking happiness through economics, and they were doing that on the backs of others.
Yes.
You then, at the end of the book, bring this into the 21st century and talk about how this is happening again today, but in a more subtle way. I wonder if you could speak to that.
Wow, yeah. Yeah, well, first of all, Wesley, I love his sermon, The Danger of Riches, and another sermon on dress, a variety of things talking about how, you can get into the issue of idolatry and thinking that your salvation is going to come from things and commitments to economic systems and that kind of thing. And so that's very, very clear. Today, one of the major issues in the 21st century and the latter part of the 20th century had to do with what they call status anxiety. And there is a book called Status Anxiety that's been very, very helpful within that context. But the status anxiety is that you equate status, wealth, prosperity, social class, all that, you relate that to love. And so therefore, so status anxiety is a major issue that we have. So without wealth, then I'm a nobody. Without status, I'm a nobody.
Right.
And so that's one of the major issues. But another issue that's talked about not only with status anxiety, but it's the narcissistic personality, where they were saying that self-actualization is no longer the dominant issue where you're trying to actualize yourself, but actualize yourself within the context of the community. Self-admiration is the issue now, and self-admiration relates to the fact that you will do whatever you need to do is to have your 15 minutes of notoriety, and thinking that that's going to bring you everything that you need.
Right. And
it, of course, is lacking within that context. So the major issue then is that the competition. The competition for love is all out there, and it's basic to our economic system.
Right.
If you have things, you don't need relationships. And so I guess the negative side of what I would have to say has to do, or cynical side of what I wanted to say more than anything else, is that who needs love when you have a Facebook and so to speak. Who needs relationships? If I have my things and I can buy this and I can buy that.
Right.
Yeah.